No, 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 no.
Oh no, as the introduction stated, I did not forget about the iniBuilds A350. Welcome back to another drama. I hope you had a wonderful week, unlike the poor passengers of the previous flight. I've spent minutes and hours in the iniBuilds forums observing the issues with this aircraft. Let's take a look at most of the common questions and issues and hopefully provide some solutions. Let's start with the most crucial problem: crash to desktops, systems and sim freezes. As you might have noticed in the intro, this was actually my first system freeze. The throttles did not respond and the systems, except for the OIT, just froze up. I actually smelled smoke coming from the avionics bay below the cockpit. By the way, this system freeze was in Flight Sim 2020, but I'm going to focus on 2024 today. There were a lot of other issues causing freezes and strange behavior. First of all, I noticed that if I start a flight from a very far distance in the world map, this sim will actually freeze and crash. And it happened every single time. So try to always zoom into the airport. I mean, you probably would want to start this complex aircraft at a gate anyway. This did help with preventing the crashes in the world map. Still, I encountered the next strange bug. If you see your main landing gear stuck in the ground, don't even try to start up the aircraft, it won't work. One solution here was to restart the flight. This did help in some occasions, but not always. I actually observed this behavior with some of the liveries from the iniManager. In some occasions, one specific livery always caused the landing gear to be stuck in the ground. Changing the livery, even if it's the same airline, did help with resolving this issue. In some other occasions, on the other hand, even changing the livery did not help, but I noticed that changing the airport, even when using the broken livery, did actually help. Here we have an example for the Lufthansa livery in Frankfurt, which, as you can see, is broken. And here we have the same livery but in the default airport of Barcelona, which this time did not cause this problem. I mean, come on, who doesn't want to fly this high fidelity aircraft out of this high fidelity airport, right? So what can we do here? First of all, the A350 was built on a software base that was heavily relying on Sim Update 1 beta. And that's actually the first thing to try. iniBuilds even set this as a, let's say, involuntary requirement on the product page. But now that the Sim Update 1 is officially released, what I did to have a clean state is to uninstall the sim completely and reinstall it again. Yes, I know it's a pain to set everything up again, but at least you don't have to download 130 gigabytes like in 2020, right? The next thing to try is some cleanup. Uninstall the A350 in your iniManager, and before reinstalling, delete the WASM folders for this aircraft. By the way, if you uninstall the sim completely, these folders will be gone anyway. I will put the locations in the description. These might differ depending on where you install the sim and of course which one you are actually using. In both locations, however, you will find the folder iniBuilds Aircraft A350. Delete this folder completely. Now go to the iniManager and install the A350 again. And before you start the sim in a rush, actually try to check if there's a new update for your GPU driver. But very important, after reinstalling, start directly at the Runway. This gives the software the chance to compile in a clean way. Okay, now after all these steps trying to fix things, do I still have issues? Yes, I do, but the issues are much more unlikely to happen than before the Sim Update 1. And now with the Update 102 for this aircraft, even less. This might not be the satisfying answer you were looking for. I mean, a lot of simmers paid a lot of money for this aircraft, including me, but what else is left to do other than reporting these issues? I mean, at least we know that there is a team behind it working on fixing these issues, unlike other aircraft we know about. Alright, let's shift the focus now to other bugs and questions. First of all, a lot of answers can be already found in the frequently asked questions section in the forum. There is also a 124-page manual for the A350. And if you don't want to go through all these threads and pages in the manual, never mind, I got you covered. If after watching this video you still have issues, you can rely on the amazing community in the iniBuilds Discord server. Alright, enough with the talking. The first thing we're going to take a look at is this message right here. OIS not available. That's an easy one actually. Go to the options, then to the OIS settings and make sure that the EFB boot time is set to instant. Real would take up to 8 minutes, sometimes more, fast, around 1 minute, and instant as the name suggests, well, instantly. Also related to the OIS is this one right here. If you are on the menu and don't see the options button on the right, well, make sure that the view offside button on the left right here is turned off. As soon as you do that, the options will be available again. So for the next topic, we have two different scenarios. Scenario 1 is you start at the gate. Scenario 2 is you start at the runway. Let's start with scenario 1. If you see the company flight plan request button disabled or grayed out, the first thing you want to check is that you have entered your SimBrief ID in the OIS settings. The button should then be enabled. If for some other reason the button is still disabled, go to the OIS Flight Operations status page and make sure to import the SimBrief flight plan there. Then the button should definitely be enabled again and you can request your flight plan. Now to scenario 2, you start directly at the runway. Here there is no way you can request the flight plan with this button because it will be disabled. No matter if you have entered your SimBrief ID or requested the flight plan on the operations status page, the button will be disabled. For this there is a workaround. Open SimBrief and your flight plan which you just created. Then scroll down until you find flight plan downloads. Scroll down again until you find the new entry iniBuilds flight plan A350. Download this file. Then copy this file and paste it into a specific location. The location is in the WASM folder of the A350, but you need to go further. You need to go to the folder Work, then Flight Plans, and paste it right into the Flight Plans folder. Then go back to the init page in your MFD, and here you need to type in the departure and arrival airport. As soon as you enter that, you will see the flight plan route which you just have downloaded. Just insert it and you are good to go. Now the next one is a pitfall I myself fell into. As you can see, we are connected to the ground powering unit, and by taking a look at the overhead panel, you can see external power 1 and 2 are connected. Now watch what happens if I turn on the beacon light. Now as you can see, the external power 1 and 2 are gone, and by taking a look at the EFB again, as you can see, the GPU is also disconnected. So to prevent this from happening, you need to go to the options, simulation, and make sure that the auto GPU disconnect is set to no. Because if you don't have the APU turned on like I did, you will suddenly have no power in the airplane. Okay, now back to the MFD. How can you actually scroll up and down in the drop-downs? If you are used to fly the Flyboy A380, you might know that you can do that by just using the right scroll bar right here. This does not work on the A350. Instead, what you can do is use the up and down arrows on the KCCU. And what is even more easy is the mouse wheel down here. Alright, so for this one I have spent a lot of time trying to find out how to actually do that, and that is how to clear the fields in the MFD. Well, it turns out that there are mandatory and optional fields. It's not new, we know it all from the A320 MCDU, for example. The MCDU on the other hand had some colors indicating if this field is read-only and changeable or not, or if it's clearable or not. So as you can see, on the right side we have the init page, and on the left side we have the fix info page. So if you try now to change, for example, the cost index, try to delete it by hitting backspace, this will not work. If you then click enter, you will get a message entry out of range. What you can do is overwrite this field. So instead of 160, you can write 150. Hit enter and you're good to go. But you cannot delete this field completely because it's mandatory. On the left side, like I said, we have a reference identifier of the airport. If you click on the field, hit the backspace, the field is gone. You have another second option, and that is if you click on the field, hit the left control key on your keyboard, then hit backspace. You can delete this field also with this method. So the next one is a little bit, let's say, complicated because you can miss those things. How to request the METAR of the airport. Now there are 3 preconditions that need to be met to actually request the METAR or the ATIS. Precondition 1 is your IRSs need to be in nav mode. Precondition 2, you need to have a flight number, a departure and arrival airport in your init page. And lastly, precondition 3 is you need to enter the Hoppy logon code in the EFB settings. Well then, let's take a look at an example. Here we have the ATIS of Milano Malpensa. As you can see, we have a departure ATIS and an arrival ATIS. Now let's go back to the ATIS page and enter the airport identifier for Milano Malpensa. So if we now select departure and send the request, we will eventually get the departure ATIS of the airport. Now if we select the arrival and hit update, we will also get the correct arrival ATIS of this airport. And if we select none, then we will get the METAR of the airport. So the logic is as follows: if there is an ATIS available, you will eventually get that ATIS, and if there is no ATIS available, you will get the METAR. The next topic is a question I asked myself: where is the auto brake low on the A350? Well, there is no auto brake low. There are 3 options for auto braking. If you are doing a takeoff, of course you will have the RTO, rejected takeoff, if you press on this auto brake button. If you are on approach and want to land and press the auto brake button, you will have braking medium. But if you have set brake to vacate, selected a runway and an exit, and then press the button, you will have the brake to vacate. Okay, this next one is a little bit tricky, although I did not encounter it myself. I read in the forums that a lot of users are complaining about not being able to move and taxi the aircraft around. No matter what they do, the aircraft simply will not move. The first thing that comes into my mind is in the control settings. Just go into the settings, controls, and look in each of your devices list. Search for brake and make sure that nothing is assigned to braking other than your rudder pedals if you have one, or the button which you are actually using for braking. Because sometimes flight controls are assigned to some keyboard buttons, which doesn't make any sense if you have a joystick, a yoke, and a throttle quadrant or whatever. And if this all doesn't help, I read in the forums that users having these issues are using GSX. So maybe try to look into that. I don't use GSX, so unfortunately I can't help with that. Alright, last but not least, some users have complained that if they press the autopilot disconnect button, you know, this red one on the joystick, the autopilot gets disconnected, which is correct behavior. But if they press the button twice or for the 2nd time, the autopilot is engaged again. This is clearly a mapping issue in the control settings. So if you go to the control settings and choose the device which you are using to disconnect the autopilot, in my case it's the joystick, what you are gonna need to make sure of is that the button is assigned to autopilot off and not toggle autopilot master, because the latter will engage the autopilot again if you press that. The latter is the same as if you would press the autopilot button on your FCU. Let's try that out. Press the autopilot button once, autopilot is connected. Press twice, no autopilot engagement again, and the alarm goes off. Alright, so these were the issues I observed in the forums, issues that I could try to provide a solution for. Of course, there are still a lot of other major problems like crashes even after the last 2 updates, things like fuel temperature is not correct or sensed checklists showing the wrong state, issues with updating the Navigraph database, and so on and so forth. While these problems are unfortunately out of my control, these needs to be investigated by the developers. Nevertheless, hopefully I could provide some answers and solutions to you. Like I said in the beginning, the only thing left to do in these cases is to provide the developers with data, especially in case of a crash to desktop. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please make sure to smash that like button if this was the case, and don't forget to subscribe to always be up to date. One day the A350 will be hopefully one of the most beautiful aircraft in the sim. Until then, be patient, happy flying, and see you in the next one.